Being a pilot requires an incredible amount of training and precision, which makes sense considering you're flying around a machine that costs tens of millions of dollars. The training they receive is second to none. But there is way more that goes into being a fighter pilot than eliminating bad guys and showing off at air shows. The first and most important thing that a pilot learns how to do is to stay alive, making split-second decisions that could save not only their own lives, but the lives of those around them. So, when things go south for a pilot, they have to instinctively know when to eject from the aircraft, all while figuring out how to avoid as much collateral damage as possible. It is an incredibly hard thing to train for, and even harder to do when the situation calls for it. Here are 5 pilots who ejected at the last second. It was a normal day back in 2003 on board the USS George Washington. The ship was conducting qualification tests somewhere off the coast of Virginia. Sailors on board later noted that nothing felt off about the day and that this was a drill that they had performed many times in the past. As the single-seat FA-18 Hornet came in for a landing, the arrestor cable used to stop the aircraft malfunctioned and snapped. If you don't already know, the arrestor cable is vital for landing on an aircraft carrier. The arrestor cable is what allows the plane to stop so quickly and not fall off the other side. Unfortunately, things didn't go as planned on this day. When the FA-18 came in for the landing, the arrestor cable snapped. With only seconds to act, the pilot ejected from the aircraft. Take a close look at the video, which I must say, it's pretty insane. Pay attention to how quickly the plane plummets into the ocean. Had the pilot reacted only seconds later, there's a chance they might not have made it. But they weren't in the clear just yet. Because of the force of the aircraft pulling on the arrestor cable, when it snapped, it went flying back in the other direction. Now, if you take another look at the video, you'll see that one sailor saw what was happening and managed to jump the cable twice. The Apollo 11 mission is one that goes down in world history. Neil Armstrong became a hero to millions on the day that he set foot on the moon. So many people wanted to be an astronaut after that. But becoming an astronaut is one of the hardest things a person can do. It takes years of practice, repetitively doing the same activities over and over and over again until operating a space vehicle is as easy as breathing. In preparation for the historic Apollo 11 mission, Neil Armstrong was going through one of those exact exercises. May 6, 1968 was the day of his 22nd flight of a test vehicle, which was a simulated lunar lander. Everything was going as planned until an unexpected mechanical malfunction caused Armstrong to lose control. He attempted to regain control for a while, but it soon became evident that he would have to eject. As the lunar test vehicle rolled heavily to one side, Armstrong ejected, nearly parallel to the ground. He was fortunate that the thrusters on his ejection seat took him in a vertical direction. The vehicle crashed into a fireball, while Armstrong escaped with no injuries. Armstrong, strong-willed and determined, shook it off and went on to complete a number of other test flights before launching into space. He would later go on to say that flying the actual lunar module was very similar to his experiences flying the test vehicle. Captain Brian Udell and his weapons officer, Captain Dennis White, were stationed at an Air Force base in North Carolina, ready to run some routine training exercises. They had done these same exercises hundreds of times in the past. Once their F-15 was over the Atlantic Ocean, they started running drills at near supersonic speeds. Tight turns, sudden ascents and descents, everything to push their skills to the limit. On doing one of these turns, Captain Udell heard wind rushing over the canopy. He then realized he had lost control of the jet. At the speeds they were traveling, they descended 7,000 feet in 5 seconds. They knew they had to eject, but they were going over 800 miles per hour, faster than the speed of sound. Once ejected, his helmet, oxygen mask, and earplugs were violently ripped from his head. Every blood vessel in his face burst, and both legs were broken, and one arm was severely dislocated. All of these injuries happened due to the force of the wind. Luckily, his ejection seat automatically deployed a life raft which Captain Udell was able to use. He was found and able to recover from his injuries. His weapons specialist, Captain White, sadly wasn't as lucky. His body was recovered, and it was determined that he died instantly upon ejection. Although violent, the ejection itself was a miracle. Captain Udell made the decision to bail out at 10,000 feet. In the time that it took him to reach down and pull the handle, they were at 6,000 feet. After pulling the handle, and as the ejection seat left, they were at 3,000 feet. The parachute opened under 1,000 feet. By the math, Captain Udell had less than half a second to spare. The A6 Intruder was a medium-range fighter jet that was used by the United States Air Force from the 1960s into the 1990s. Although they saw a lot of action in the various wars, they were prone to mechanical failures. Such was the case for a pilot and his navigator who were assigned to serve aboard the USS Carl Vinson. In this incident, the pilot took off from the deck as normal. However, immediately after the wheels lifted off, the fighter jet was not producing power. The crew were screaming to the pilot to pull up and give it power. Unknown to them, though, the engine had failed. After a period of time spent failing to get the fighter in the air, the pilot knew they had to bail. As the plane started to roll to the right side, the pilot jettisoned the fuel tank. Looking around, he saw the horizon was at 90 degrees. They were out of the envelope, or to the point where ejecting would cause the occupants to be shot downward instead of up. But they had to chance it. Upon pulling the lever, the pilot and navigator were shot out at 90 degrees. The pilot's parachute opened just feet above the water, but the navigator didn't have a full deployment. Both suffered minor injuries, but thankfully survived this terrifying ordeal. Once again, we have an accident concerning the A6 Intruder. It's already stressful enough knowing that you have to fly a jet that's prone to problems. But when you have to do it while trying to land on an aircraft carrier, the stress can be multiplied many times over. The pilot in this story found himself in this exact situation. Luckily, he also remembered his training. As the pilot in this incident approached the aircraft carrier for a landing, he experienced a flameout, which is a violent engine failure. Although only one of the engines failed, they were past the point of no return, and there would not be enough power to get airborne again. The pilot knew that they would need to ditch. However, his training kicked in, and he performed his duties flawlessly. The pilot raised the gear and turned the jet, pointing it towards the ocean. He had the presence of mind to not jettison the fuel tank as is procedure. Doing so would have caused the tank to land on the ship, endangering the crew. Once he was sure that the fighter cleared the side of the ship, the ejection levers were pulled. Both navigator and pilot survived with seconds to spare. Pilots in the service are some of the most highly trained, skilled, and respected individuals on the planet. They have the precision and skill to pull off incredible maneuvers and tasks, but also are able to act fast when faced with an emergency. The pilots in this video have demonstrated that they cannot react solely on impulse, but must logically assess their situation and make the best decisions to save lives. To see another video like this one, be sure to click the link on screen now. As always, thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.